how is sex trafficking or domestic sex trafficking affecting people worldwide, particularly for survivor friends that you know that you've just previously mentioned?
Sure. Sure. So human trafficking is such a broad term, and it gets really complicated because there's also confusion in the legal definition, but it's called modern day slavery because somebody is forcing somebody else to work for them, but actually it's not really work because they're not getting paid. And people are being forced in industries from the sex industry to agriculture. You know, you'll hear about chocolate farms, diamonds, you know, anything you can think of, as well as child soldiers, children who are forced into combat. There's forced child marriage, and then how it plays out here in the U.S. is that there are international people who are tricked into believing they can get a job in the United States and brought over. Their papers are taken away, and then once they escape, for example, sometimes they can risk deportation if they don't prosecute their trafficker. So that's a big issue for survivors that I connect with, which is international folks coming in, don't know the language, are being forced to work for somebody. Now, my experience is what we call domestic sex trafficking. So I'm a survivor of child abuse and domestic sex trafficking, which is, it looks many different ways, but for me, unfortunately, it was my parents. And what that means is that my parents were sexually abusing me and then selling me out to other people. So you'll hear about this, you know, pimps who sell children. And I say children instead of girls because people think it just happens to girls, but it happens to boys and transgender youth as well here in the U.S. We hear about it, you know, in India and Southeast Asia, where kids are forced to work in brothels on the streets, and that actually happens here in the U.S. too.